All right.
Greetings, Ridgefield. I'm Carol Mahlstedt, and I'm here with Stress Busters, How Ridgefield Copes. And today we're talking with Hilary Brown, who is a teacher at East Ridge Middle School. She teaches music, and Hilary's going to tell us all about the stress that she experiences during COVID and how she copes. Hi, Hilary.
Hi, how are you, Carol?
Good. Nice to see you, and especially nice to see you outside.
We are finally having a nice warm day, and I'm taking all that I can get right now.
So tell us about COVID and stress, teaching middle school. Like, what are you finding the most, stressful about, living through COVID with being a teacher?
It's been through a few different phases. Last spring, it was hard because I very abruptly lost contact with all of my students, and there were
Oh,
some students that I had in 8th grade that I never got to really say goodbye to. So it was a very abrupt thing, and for us
oh
to go
yeah.
so suddenly, yeah, it was sad. For us to go so suddenly to remote learning was difficult. That was a big transition, and trying to get everybody on board and connection issues. I mean, we weren't really prepared, and it wasn't for anyone's lack of effort to try to make it work. It was a difficult thing to do. Um, so it was hard, and I would have my own frustrations with not being able to reach students, with not being able to teach because I teach band. You can't have band if there is no band to have. We weren't together.
Right.
And one of the great things about the music that we were doing, it wasn't just private lessons. It was like, this is what happens when we are together, and it's an organic experience, and we're working together and we're figuring this out together. And there was no more together anymore. And I think that was hard. For me, I just kind of my head would get full of noise, of just thoughts of, how am I going to make it work? How can I meet this person's expectations and this person's expectations, and still be understanding and compassionate? How do I reach my curriculum goals and still feel like I'm being understanding of what my students are going through? It was hard. And then I had to redevelop my curriculum. I had to figure out how I was going to teach something in a way that was totally different from what I'd done. So I would, as time permitting in the day, I would just walk out to the woods and just hike as fast as I could. That sounds weird. Sometimes I run, but more often, just hiking and letting my thoughts just kind of wander. Um, and that's not a bad thing, to just let your thoughts just kind of spin out. And by the time I came back, I either all the negative things that were in there were gone, or I found that the problems that I thought I had were not as insurmountable as I had thought they were. Um, and it's continued. This has been something that we're apart from each other, and it's hard. And we can't solve problems in the normal, let me just go talk to that person, let me give them a hug, let me solve it this way. When we are communicating through emails, there's so much that's lost with that, and so much that gets misinterpreted, and even things like friendships that become difficult because you can't do the normal things. So this is something that has been good for me. It's been good for me and my husband that we can just go out and go for a hike, and sometimes just the silence of being out there is great. If all I hear is, the wind and the leaves and birds chirping, that's okay.
And it somehow that quiets the noise that's actually in your head.
Yeah. It quiets the noise that's in my head. The fact that I'm moving, and I know that, a lot of people say move a muscle, change a thought. When you start getting negative about things, I find that if I could just walk my way through it and get my heart pumping a little bit, thinking about other things. And nothing feels as difficult after my hike as it did before, unless I have a sore knee.
That's always hard when you have this.
That's always hard.
Yeah. So tell us about the actual hiking. Like, do you have a particular, mileage that you do? Do you like particular spots in Ridgefield?
I usually go in Pierpont State Park, which is right here, right behind me. It is close, very close to my front door, which is fantastic, and the ease of access is terrific. I don't have to drive anywhere to go anywhere. Um, so I usually hike. I want to say it's around a 2 mile hike. Sometimes it seems like more, sometimes it seems like less. Depend. My Apple Watch is not consistent with exactly what the distance is.
But you don't worry about that.
No, I don't worry about it. Sometimes I come home from work and, lately as the sun is going down a little bit sooner, I
Yes.
find myself saying, yeah, maybe I should just do the short loop. My husband and I have this thing about the full loop or the short loop or the out and back. Like we have different nicknames for different routes that we take. Just because I know like I can do this amount in this amount of time before the sun goes down and I'm suddenly saying, wow, it got a lot colder. So. We also go to Bennett's Farm sometimes. We go hiking there. But it kind of doesn't matter where I go if I just put on my comfortable shoes and make sure I'm warm enough. I can.
We just lost
Are you there?
Yeah.
Am I back now?
Yep, you're back.
If I can just put comfortable shoes on and get walking, everything feels better.
And I like the idea that you just let your mind wander. So it isn't like you walk thinking about all your stressors. It sounds like you walk with the idea that you're really not going to try to think about anything. You just let your thoughts go.
Yeah, I can't say that I don't know exactly if it's a matter of intent or if it's just a matter of after a while I'm done thinking about it. Like I start out thinking about it, and then after a while, it's all thought through. Does that make sense?
It does make sense.
It's like it takes you all the way down, all the way around in a circle, and it's like I said, it's suddenly not as challenging as it was. And I find that I get a lot more creative too. There were times last spring when I would be done from a hike and I would say, I could totally do this with my students right now. And I would have thought of something that had I been sitting in my office would not have come to me necessarily. But the fact that you're just kind of walking and out there and among nature and nothing else interfering. I mean, let's face it, we are all victims of the pinging of our phones, and the buzzing and the constant need to answer emails, and to be away from that even for just a little bit of time, just gives you the opportunity to let your mind work the way it's supposed to.
It strikes me as a psychologist that one of the things you're touching on is that when you're walking and not necessarily trying to think or not think about anything, it's like the layers of your consciousness start to surface, and your creativity, the less conscious parts of you start to work on things without you even being aware of it. So that when you're done with your hike, you've sort of worked something out without actually working it out.
Yes. Yeah. Yes. No, you're exactly right. And, sometimes I write music. Because I'm a music teacher and that's always front of mind. I'll get a melody stuck in my head sometimes, and then I find that I'm kind of spinning it out a little bit. By the time I come back, sometimes I remember it, sometimes I don't. But it's nice to have that in there as well. So
that's really cool. Yeah. So I also know you're a clarinet player, so maybe you can just touch on that for a minute.
That's almost the opposite way of getting my brain to go elsewhere. There are some things that they have in common. One of them is when I'm practicing clarinet, I am not thinking about all the pings and buzzes and whistles because I'm busy specifically focusing on one thing. So when I go on a hike, I'm not thinking about anything in particular. That's kind of the point. When I'm practicing clarinet, I'm thinking in particular of what I need to accomplish. My brain is too hyper focused on what I'm doing for me to let any other thoughts invade, and for me to let any other negative feelings invade. They all go away. So it's I don't know exactly why the brain functions that way, but it's nice that sometimes you can get away from things by not thinking about anything, and sometimes you can get away from things by really thinking about something else. So
Well, I think it's because we can only focus on one thing at a time. So when you're playing, although we like to fool ourselves and think we can, multitask, but we
yeah,
can't
that's a myth.
really. It's really sequential thinking. So
Hmm.
when you're playing the clarinet and you're only thinking about where your fingers go or what notes you have to play, you can't be thinking about band or your students or the emails you have to answer. You're only thinking about how to play the clarinet.
Exactly right. And even when you've gotten to a level, because I've been playing for decades and decades, so even when you've gotten to a level where it's not even just a matter of notes and rhythms, but it's a matter of there's always something more. It's the nuance, it's the dynamics, it's the intonation, it's the phrasing. There's always another level to get to in music, and that's one of the great things about it. It's like any art form. You can always dig a little bit deeper. You can always do a little bit more. So yeah, it keeps your brain plenty
And
occupied.
music by itself is so transformative. I mean, there are pieces that I will play that almost instantly, like Pachelbel's Canon in D major is one of them. When I put that on, somehow all of my cares kind of melt away within
Oh,
seconds.
for sure, for
Yeah.
sure. There's plenty of music that, and I was doing a lesson just yesterday with my students about. I was having a drive into work where I said, I'm really stressed out. And I just was.
Mhm.
And there was a piece of music, and it's just from a soundtrack. It's not like any well known classical piece of music, but it's a little snippet of music that it starts with one note and it's almost like it germinates and then it kind of grows from there and then it sets you down gently at the end. And I shared it with all my students, and it was amazing the way it. I don't check my pulse or my heart rate or my blood pressure before and after, but I can feel it different
Mhm. Mhm.
without a doubt. And I think and to use music to transform how you feel is it's you can't measure that.
No, you can't. It's so special, really. I mean, I have different playlists for different things.
Oh sure, yes.
And it's just really fun to turn them on. And I save them for those activities, right? So I have one for running, and I
Right,
don't really listen to it other than when I'm trying to walk, run, right? Because it energizes me. And if I
right,
play it at other times, it won't have the same effect.
right,
And the same with a kind of soothing, restful piece,
right.
uh, playlist. Yes. Well, it
You
looks
know,
like,
it's oh sorry, I was just
no.
gonna say it's funny that you talk about running because when I run, um, if I do, I feel less tired if I'm listening to classical music, and I think it's specifically classical music that I've played before, because I start thinking about that piece of music and how to play it, and I'm not thinking about the fact that I'm really, really tired,
Yeah,
or
that
like
need it.
I'd like to stop right now. Just how I'm wired, I guess.
Yeah, that's so interesting. Well, it looks like you're about to take a hike. So, and
Yes.
it's a Friday, so you deserve a hike, I'm sure, after this long week.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So I hope you enjoy your hike. I really appreciate the fact that you've shared with, your fellow Ridgefielders how you cope with stress, and we wish you well, and we wish your students well as we get through this year together, and have fun playing the clarinet.
Thank you so much. It was nice to talk with you, Carol.
Nice to talk with you too. Take care.
Okay, bye
Bye-bye.
bye.